Hey guys, Justin here. I wanted to take a quick second and let you know about Growth Now Movement Live, coming to Reading, Pennsylvania, May 30th to June 1st. This event is going to feature some of my top guests like Fabio Viviani from America's Top Chef, best-selling author and future board expert Sarah Centrella, Albie Manzo from Real Housewives of New Jersey, and many, many more. This is going to be a game-changing event. It is truly going to be a day-long rock concert for entrepreneurs, forward thinkers, and people who are ready to take their life to the next level. So if that's you, head over to gnmlive.com and grab your tickets today because prices are going up soon. Again, go to gnmlive.com now to level up your life and truly create the life of your dreams. Can't wait to see you there. What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now Movement. This week, I sit down with Tony Whatley. Tony is a mentor, an entrepreneur, an engineer, and a car fanatic. I know that sounds like a lot, but Tony's also the best-selling author of the book Side Hustle Millionaire because he's somebody who had a corporate job, a 9-to-5, making good money, and decided to start a side hustle, which then made him multiple millions of dollars. He's now become a mentor and a coach to entrepreneurs all over the world using his brand 365 Driven or 365 Driven. He's also the host of the top-ranked podcast 365 Driven, which you can catch me on his show in a couple weeks, so you want to definitely tune in to that one. But I think you guys are going to love this episode because we talk about so many great things. We talk about how this world is full of skeptics, so you have to show up consistently to prove yourself. We talk about building a business on the side and why you shouldn't really cut the cord and take the leap before you're ready. We talk about so many great mindset tricks that you need to do to really kind of get out of the time for dollars mind frame and how your time is worth more than you actually think. There's so many great nuggets to be taken away in this one. You guys are going to love it. Now, before we get there, just a reminder, there's less than 50 tickets left to Growth Now Movement Live. This thing is about to sell out. So if you guys want to come hang out with me, the movement makers, and all the incredible speakers at Growth Now Movement Live, head over to gnmlive.com and get your tickets today because it will sell out. Now, without further ado, I give to you my friend, Tony Whatley. Tony, welcome to the Growth Now Movement, man.
Thanks for having me on, Justin. Can't wait to share some value with your awesome audience, man.
Yeah, I was just recently interviewed by you. I don't know the semblance of when these things are going to be released. You might get released on my show before I get released on your show. But it's funny, when we were talking last time, we talked about how we kind of stalked each other for a while on social media. And this whole entire world of entrepreneurs who find each other, right? Like we have mutual friends like Jeremy Ryan Slade and a bunch of other guys. And, we tend to find each other. And I think there's certain people who stand out. There's a lot of pretenders. There's a lot of people who are trying to make it and they're pretending like they've already made it and they're teaching people to do things they've never really done themselves. But I know that I have a good eye, and obviously you have a good eye to be like, okay, this person's legit. And so first, congratulations on being legit, man. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm excited to dive into your story and learn a little bit more about you. But why don't you just take a couple minutes and introduce yourself to my audience and who you are today, and then we'll unpack how you got there.
Got it. So most people know me online as the Side Hustle Millionaire, and it's a really robust title that kind of puts it out there. And a lot of times, I wrote a book with that title. So a lot of times people see that title and they think it's just kind of a fiction novel or just some kind of a fluff you up fantasy type, try to grab you. It's a good hook. I'll admit it's a great hook.
Great hook.
But I really resisted that title for a long time because I just thought it was overly pompous or maybe arrogant. And honestly, it was my book editor and art cover designer, Mike Fallett. He and I had the conversation and he read the manuscript I wrote and he said, "Hey, what is this crappy title you have?" My original manuscript, the title was just The Hustle, because I used to love playing pool, man. I used to be a competitive 9-ball pool player. My automotive screen name all through the businesses I owned was 9-ball. So I kind of thought it'd be a play on words. And he's like, "Dude, this isn't your story." I was like, your story is like, you're a side hustle millionaire. You made millions of dollars as a side hustle. And he goes, I don't know anybody that does that. Have you? And I say, well, my business partner and a couple other people that had the same business. Yes.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, I don't. So he's like, you need to own your story. And I had to think about that, Justin. I had to think about, man, you're right. This is my story. And that's what makes my story unique. And why am I stepping out of that spotlight and trying to hide that? People were going to laugh. I definitely had critics, different things like that. But that's who I'm best known as nowadays online. The last 20 years, I've been known as the guy that started a bunch of automotive communities and businesses and did really well and had some cool cars.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that about how, people would laugh and it was a little weird stepping into it, but that's who I was. I talk often about how it's the hardest thing for us to do is to acknowledge ourselves for our winnings, at least for me. So I do this exercise when I work with like small groups, which is I teach them how to tell their story. And the first thing I say is, what do you do? Right. And they'll say, whatever. I'm a chiropractor. I'm a this or whatever. And then I go around and go, now in a sentence, how great are you? Like, tell me your biggest thing. And that's the hardest thing for them to figure out, because when we're living this world, we don't realize the magnitude of the impact we're making. So for you to say, I was a little gun shy of being called the Side Hustle Millionaire, or my book being called that, but that's who you were, right? So what was that journey like just in the beginning of like, okay, I'm going to embrace this? Like, how uncomfortable did you feel and how'd you push through that?
Coming from the car world, racing and performance cars, you can imagine it's an ego, adrenaline driven group of alpha males primarily. We maybe have a 5% women community in that group. And they all looked up to me based on the things I owned or the things that I accomplished, but they didn't really want me to share the information that I had. They just almost liked the visual and the material objects that I had.
Sure.
So I decided in June of 2017, so not that long ago, Justin, and I said, you know what? I have two passions in this world. It's business and cars. And you guys have talked, I've talked cars for 20 years. You guys know me as cars. I've been published in several magazines, been on TV, things like that for cars. But I said, but you guys don't know much about my business side and what I really love. So I started to make an effort to share that because I'd been helping people in the last 15 years since I sold a really good company to help build their businesses. And I was getting really good results and really good feedback. And they were saying, hey, Tony, you should be doing this full time. You have a real passion for this. And I was like, well, guys, I'm too busy. I've got this oil and gas corporate career, middle management, making multiple six figures. And I've got these businesses that I own. And I really just don't have time to do any coaching, guys. I love it and I help my friends in my inner circle, but that's about it. But I realized that I was really being selfish with the knowledge that I have.
Yeah.
I knew I could serve thousands, and originally I would say thousands. Now I know I can serve millions of people. Again, you set your goals kind of low and you don't realize your own potential, the value you can bring to this earth. And you're always trying to step out of that spotlight when you should be trying to shine your brightest. And I've learned that over the course of the last 2 years that I can't be throttling myself back to make other people look better or to appease their egos. I need to just deliver what I can and do the best I can every single time, whether I'm on your podcast or standing on a stage or doing my own shows. I'm always going to try to leave it all on the playing field, so to speak. I just don't ever want to have a performance where I go, I could have done better because of my own throttling. Whether that's a lack of talent or something, that's fine. But I'll tell you that when I did step out and I started making these posts, trying to motivate people, trying to encourage people, trying to challenge people's beliefs and their self-limiting beliefs mainly, I definitely had critics. I had people that I thought were longtime friends that I'd known for years. They'd say comments like, Tony, what are you doing? Like, who do you think you are? Like, are you going to be the next Tony Robbins? Ha, ha, ha. Joking around. And, there's always like these animosities. There's a little bit of a sting buried into every insult that people throw. And what it really hurt because as someone that's always trying to help people, trying to get people leveled up or just do anything or just challenge anyone. I've always been this proponent of finding people to look at their own potential and make them climb. So when you're coming from that pace of trying to help other people and you're getting critics and naysayers like kind of, crap on your parade, it hurts for a while.
Yeah.
But I said, what? My purpose is stronger than my fear of sharing my story. And I'm not going to let you stop me. So I did invest in myself. I started taking public speaking classes and coaching and doing all these things to become the right person to carry the story that I have today. And it wasn't without the pain or sacrifice for sure.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by the idea that for years, you're building these side hustles, you're making clearly great money on the side hustle. Why keep the job even then? Was it a security blanket for you? Like, what was that?
It was, and it kind of stems back to college. I have a degree in mechanical engineering, and I paid for that myself by working full time. I was a waiter on the weekends, and I was working the chemical refineries during the week. So it was a very stressful 7 year period of my life where I was broke, sleep deprived, had terrible relationships, and just really struggled. But I never wanted to quit. I mean, I had to drop out of calculus 2 twice because it was kicking my ass.
At least
And
you
I
made
had
it to
one more
calculus.
attempt. And I had
was
one
like
more attempt.
algebra 2, man. I was done after
There you
that.
go. So yeah, if I would have dropped it one more time, I would have never gotten my degree. So I really just buckled down that third time and really pushed through it. And there was a lot of classes like that. And so I had this time investment and monetary investment in that. And I know that it's a sunk cost fallacy looking back now, but I didn't know all this stuff until like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm 46 for anybody listening for the point of reference, but I've been doing this a long time, and I climbed that corporate ladder very well. I was navigating it very well. I made it into the leadership roles and management roles. And it's because I over deliver. I always try to take on more responsibility and do a lot more than what's required. I never wanted to do the bare minimum. Even in my early 20s when I was working in restaurants, I always tried to become the lead waiter, eventually managing the restaurants. So I've always been addicted to just climbing the ladder and doing the things and learning the bureaucracy and building the relationships and the network along the way. And so I was very good at that.
Yeah.
I made it to middle management working for the major oil operators. So that's like a dream job for most people in the oil industry. I mean, there's so many service providers, engineering, manufacturing, and they would love to work for a Chevron or a Shell or an Exxon. And I was that guy.
Yeah.
So it was really hard for me to think like these are dream jobs most people would kill for. And who am I to like walk away from these things?
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough too. I mean, when you think about, that solid multiple six figures, as a career, like that's tough. Like even if it's 200,000, which was probably more than that, like, you go, oh my God, like that's a huge security blanket if this side hustle falls apart, or yeah, it's making me money now, but who knows in the future? And oh wait, I sold it. I'm not making money off of that anymore. It's just one lump sum, right? But then you took the leap, right? You started listening to people saying, you should really coach people. It seems like you're really passionate about it. What was that aha moment to finally break out from that day job and make the side hustle a full hustle?
I think for me, it was important to build up the financial padding to be able to experiment a little bit more, where I had been using that corporate career to take higher risks in my side hustles because like you said, we had the security blanket, had all the benefits and good income coming in. But what I really started to think is that, I've been through 3 oil downturns in my career. And as I got older, I found that it was a lot harder to find replacement jobs at that level. So when you start to get into those high paying salaries, they sound great on paper until you're laid off or there's a downturn in your industry and you're unemployed for 6 months. So it kind of averages back down to a lower salary. When I was in my 20s and my 30s, it was very easy to go find another job within a month or two because you're at a lower level, lower salary. There's a lot more opportunities out there. And I really got tired of my livelihood being someone else's decision.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. For entrepreneurs, we're very, we're very solo. We very like to have the independence about us and the freedom. And I hated that I was based on somebody else's decision. I was going to lose my job and my income. And luckily, I always had these side hustles. That's a great tip to share is like, there's a great reason to have a side business because you never know. And I walked around with a parachute all the time in a corporate setting, knowing that I could just leave at any time and my bills will still be paid. That gives you a huge boost of confidence. No one ever talks about.
Yeah.
But my aha was just really that. It was, you know what? I said, Tony, I can always come back. I can always go back to that industry. I mean, the experience that I have, the education I have, it didn't disappear. Yeah, it didn't disappear. Let me go try this for a year. And if I don't like it, I can always go back. I can still go back. I can still go take a high paid consultant gig and I might. That's still fun. I enjoy that aspect of the career.
Sure.
I might use it for the padding of my other businesses, but
that's huge.
You got to bet on yourself and you got to understand that you don't lose your experience. You don't lose the network that you built. They're always going to be there waiting for you when you're ready to come back.
Yeah, man. I mean, consulting too, that's an entrepreneurship thing. That's not a side hustle. Like if you were to go back to that, I mean, I know a number of high end consultants who, are making $500,000 a year consulting in businesses that they used to just be an employee of. So it's kind of interesting to kind of watch that whole thing become, a trend, right? But like, I like the idea because I built my business on the side before I took the leap, and I probably took the leap before I was financially secure, but I had to in order to continue to grow it, right? But so many people that are out there giving this sage advice of just do it. Your body's going to force you to take action. And, dude, they're just going to be looking for another job in 3 months. It's not necessarily easy to build a business. It doesn't happen overnight. That's the facts. So to just cut the cord and jump, like, that's dumb, I think.
Gary Vee style.
Yeah, exactly.
Your job sucks. Just quit your job and bet on yourself. It's like, that's terrible advice out of context. Like, if you're making six figures, don't jump.
No.
Don't quit your job. Don't say, I hate this. I'm just going to go start something.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. But like, I love the fact that you took the idea of this side hustle thing and said this could be a full-time income on the side. Whereas a lot of people go, well, since it's on the side, it's only a side income. You know, there's a lot of people and there's companies that promote that, whether it be direct sales or it be, there's certain insurance companies that do it. I won't name any names, but, you know, that's kind of how they pitch it. So what was your mindset going into it? Did it happen accidentally that you made that much money on the side, or that was the plan?
It was never the plan. To me, the money's a result of the value that you create in this world and the action that you put in. So when I first started that company, LS1 Tech, back in 2001, pre-social, pre-targeted ads, pre-funnel, pre-Facebook, I mean, we were cold calling and emailing and doing whatever we could to get more advertisers on that website. But when my business partner and I started that, we both had brand new Camaro and Firebird. And they were $500 a month. And we said, hey, you know what? It'd be really cool if we just started this business to be able to pay for that car note and maybe a little bit of racing and some car parts. That'd be pretty cool, right? Be like having a free car.
Yeah.
So our passion was we wanted to build something on the internet for our buddies to all hang out on and just, you know, talk cars and do racing stuff and just chat about it. So we created that. And within the first 3 months, we blew past that advertising revenue. And we're like, hey, this is like a legit business now. It's not like a hobby. Like, we should just treat it like a business. You know, he and I both had professional careers. We had both been in management. We're like, let's just treat it like a business then. Like, we don't need this money. Let's just build this. And it scaled. And in the next 5 years, we were making about $400,000 a year profit. And, you know, for something that started as just a passionate thing. So, you know, and then we were acquired in 2007 by a larger company for $2.3 million cash. So we made literally millions of dollars on the side. And, you know, that business only took about 30 minutes a day to maintain.
That's amazing. And like, I love the idea when somebody goes, hey, I started this passion thing and it became a business. That's kind of how my business started. I started the podcast as a passion to have a conversation, and now it's a, you know, full blown business. But, you know, when I hear things like that, I become inspired, but also I would imagine people listening, they get a little nervous. Like, I don't have the right idea. What do you mean? Like, I don't think that way, or I don't know the tech space. What would you say to somebody who thinks they have a good idea or they're passionate about something? How do they start?
I think if you want to start playing in the big numbers game, you have to remove borders. And what I say is, too many people think about creating this business within their own zip code, whether that's a service or things like that. You got to think bigger. The entire world is connected to our telephones now. We can have customers all over the world. I still own a forged wheel retail DV8 motoring company I've had for 12 years. It was a spinoff from that automotive forum. Sold $800,000 in wheels last year, working about 15 minutes a day. So you can own, and I'm shipping wheels to Dubai and Japan and, you know, Australia and England, and I have customers all over the world. So when you start to think about the scale of your business and where it could be, and this is a drop shipping, you know, version of the company. I don't have to ever put my hands on the product. I'm the point of transaction, give them advice on the fitments for their cars and the manufacturer bill. And actually, they even pay me in advance, Justin. I don't even have to use my own money.
Yeah.
They pay me. My average sale is about $4,000. They pay me in advance because I've built a reputation that I'm not going to screw them over. And that takes time. But they're paying me in advance. I'm not having to open my own wallet. I pay the manufacturer. Manufacturer builds the wheels in 6 to 8 weeks and ships them directly to the customer. So I never have to touch the product, never have to carry inventory, never have to spend my own money. So there's a lot of different business models out there that are similar, and you got to be able to find those. And that's the beauty of what I like to do, is teach people to find things that require less of their time and get away from the trading your hours for dollars. That's the biggest fail of employee mindset, is that, hey, here's my current value and here I'm trading my hours for dollars. We only have a finite amount of hours per day. Could you imagine like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos waking up thinking of what they can make per hour and trying to trade that? I mean, it's ridiculous. So you got to think about, there's no relationship between your value, your revenue, or your time once you create the right business model. So you got to remove those borders. You got to get to where you're thinking, okay, the entire world could be my customer base. What can I serve them? Or you can build a community like I did. The website has over 300,000 registered members. That's not followers. That's like emailed people like with their contact information. Like, having that kind of a power is a crazy amount of leverage to attract dollars from different revenue streams like advertising revenue or events or things like that. So think about building a community or a brand, kind of like I'm doing now with 365 Driven Entrepreneur Community. You want to build something that people want to be a part of, because even as leaders like you and I, we're leaders. We have our own tribes, but we still like being in other communities. You know what I mean? We like to have that sense of belonging. It's human nature. Understand that, embrace that, try to figure out something that like a mantra that you can niche down, get your community on track, believe in why you're doing it and have that passion for it and be the strong leader for that. And that's something that can also scale on a more local level. Like, it can also go worldwide. I have listeners, and you do too, all over the world. We have this tribe that we built based on a community. These are just the big ways to scale outside of your city or your zip code.
Yeah. By the way, there was so much in that last rant that you had that I was just like, yeah, and I wanted to stop you, but I was like, no, this is just too much gold, and you just kept going. But to go back to something you had mentioned, you had talked about kind of that limiting belief of, time for dollars. Because as employees, that's what we're used to. I work 40 hours a week. This is how much I get paid. That, honestly, and I love that you brought that up, because it was something that I've realized about a year ago, was that that's what was stopping me, because I've only been full time on my own for a year. But that's what was stopping me from taking the leap, because I'm like, okay, transactionally I have to do this, which means I have to have this many clients paying me this much, and then per hour I'm doing this. And so that's not how entrepreneurship works. Like, money comes in different ways when you have a business versus being an employee. Like, I was like, how do I replace a weekly paycheck versus how do I just make money? First of all, that's huge. What was, and when you talk about side hustles, that's big too, right? Because that's the big aha moment of that side hustle being able to make you millions. It's like, it has nothing to do with time. It has everything to do with ideas and then, putting in the work, right?
Yeah. And I would say that, to touch on your hours in trading, I don't think it's not necessarily a bad thing if you have to trade hours for dollars initially when you start your business, but understand that you need to evolve it or pivot or scale at some point, because you're only limited to how many hours you have. So, even within my coaching business, I'm helping people one-on-one to build their businesses and scale and sell their companies. And I realize that I can't really escape that one-on-one business model. So what I do is I just keep raising my rates once I hit a certain threshold of clients, and that's supply and demand. And there's it's economic principles. There's nothing wrong with that, because you have a finite amount of time. Don't be afraid to value yourself properly and raise your rates, and just keep doing so to keep your comfort level. Hey, if I only want to work with 5 clients a year, I'm going to find the 5 highest people that can afford that want to work with me. It's just real simple. And so think about that. You can scale your value. Well, your value is always going to be your value, but you can always scale the hourly rate. You don't have to think about what you make today. It has nothing to do with what you make today. And most people do exactly like that. They want to start a business. Hey, Tony, I make $80,000 a year, and I need to make a side business that makes $80,000 a year. I was like, well, why do you think like that? Well, I just want to replace my income. It's like, well, why don't we talk about making $800,000 a year? And now they're like, oh, you think I could do that? It's like, well, why can't you? And you start to ask them the questions on their relationships with money and things like, why do you think you're limited to under $100,000? Well, no one in my family's ever made $100,000, and the 6-figure income's like always been a dream of our entire family. And it's like, so you let their self-limiting beliefs become your glass ceiling. And then they're like, oh, wow, I never thought of that. It's like, well, do you think millionaires woke up one day and said, you know what, I think I'll just be a millionaire? Or billionaires were, did you think any billionaires were kids going, hey, I'm going to be a billionaire? No, they all believed like, hey, I want to make 100,000. Oh, this is pretty cool. Let me make 150. Wow, maybe I can make 200. Maybe I can make 500. Maybe I can make $1 million a year. I mean, these are the kind of things that you kind of learn as you go, but all of those are just self-limiting beliefs that have no rhyme or reason. But touching on the side hustles, what I saw when I was thinking about writing my book, I started looking around. I did some research. I saw what kind of people were talking about. I read the blogs. There's some popular podcasts on side hustles out there. I listened to several episodes, kind of trying to get a vibe of what people were talking about, thinking that there was going to be a lot more people like me out there, because I know the digital world, there's a lot of people out there making serious money with side businesses or online businesses. So I'm thinking, maybe I'll learn something. And what I learned was I was kind of saddened by the topics and the discussions and the level of thinking that a lot of these books and these experts, air quotes for those who can't see this, that the thinking of side hustles, everybody thinking it's like a hobby business, hobby money. And I literally were seeing books like telling people like how to make a couple hundred extra bucks a month. And I think there's some that were like, if you work really hard, you can make $3,000 extra per month. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I can make that on one email. Yeah. Like, why are these people teaching this stuff for people to like think small? And when you join these, side hustle communities, and people are like, hey guys, I need some ideas on some side hustles. And people are like, oh, go drive for Uber. It's like, that's not a side hustle. You don't own that brand. You can't make the corporate policies. It's like the only thing you get to do is decide when you go drive around. It's like, that is not being an entrepreneur. You're basically a paid contractor to go represent some other brand. There's a difference. Like, let me educate you how to think bigger and quit trading hours for dollars again.
Yeah, that is wise advice. If you guys are listening, like, it's just, you have to start thinking bigger, even if it's scary to think bigger. Cause I think oftentimes like you said, you put your own glass ceiling on top of what you're doing, right? And that's just not a good thing. You had also mentioned earlier, you talked about how, we're leaders, right? We lead a community, but we also are parts of communities and we continue to learn. How important has the idea that that you need to continue to learn from everybody around you at all times? How important has that been in your growth?
I think that's mission critical there, to always be investing in yourself and learning and doing new skills and things you can monetize yourself, building the network, learning how to communicate is key. I would say that now that I've done a lot of different things and taught myself a lot of different skills, I would say that communication skill is the number one tactic that you need to have, whether that's public speaking. And I would say that go take the public speaking classes, go join Toastmasters. It's cheap. It's like $45 for 6 months. I mean, there's no excuses.
Right.
You're going to learn how to be a more effective communicator and leader in that kind of a group setting. It's going to be a lot more confidence in all settings, whether you're closing deals in the sales room or you're closing someone asking to try to go on a date with you. I mean, communication is key. And the ones who can effectively communicate, I mean, you're listening to Justin and I, we sound very polished. We don't say a lot of ums and like sound like unsure of ourselves. And we don't sound like we have a lot of uncertainty in our voices and question ourselves. And really, if we were speaking like that, you guys would have already tuned out. You just don't even realize it. Like we are attracted to hearing people that can speak their minds effectively. It's a skill. It's not something you're born with. I was an introvert. I know you were an introvert as well, Justin. We kind of came out of that shell by choice. We decided, what, this whole like being shy, introversion stuff, it's like, this shit ain't working for me. No. Like, it's like the ones out there killing it, doing the things I want to do, they're the ones willing to put themselves out there. So what do I need to do? I need to put myself out there. Well, I'm not ready to be that way. Well, how do I get ready to be that way? Let me invest in myself. Well, I can find coaches and take lessons and get more skills. Are you kidding me? Oh, wow. I can read books. So to me, exactly, learning. I listen to at least one audio book per week, and I flip pages on books because that takes me a long longer. I read about 30 minutes every evening, right? That's my nighttime ritual right before bed. I go and lay in bed and I read for 30 minutes a paper book, and it takes me a month to flip pages through a book. So I'll finish each year with about 60 books, and the amount of knowledge that I can gain in 60 books or 60 authorities in all these different subjects. And I don't read fiction books. I'm not reading for escapism.
Yeah.
I read business books. I read mindset books. I read human psychology books. I read marketing books. I read public speaking books, influence books, spirituality books. Like, I'm always trying to invest in myself in all these different pieces of knowledge to gain my understanding of what I want to be able to share with this world. And I pick up, honestly, if you buy a $12, $15 book and you learn one thing in that book, it was well worth the expense. And if you do that 60 times a year, you're learning a lot of value for a very, very low price.
Yeah. That's huge too, because I think sometimes we're told that you have to get that $10,000 coach to level up. Is there a quantum leap in doing something like that? Yes. But dude, when I was 19 years old and I picked up that first self-development book, I didn't know what that would lead to, but it led to a different way of thinking, which then led to the next book, which said, okay, cool. What if I implemented this? And then it's just those little things that you piece together in your life. And 60 books a year is insane, by the way. I do like 12 books a year, maybe. But the thing is, like, I'm constantly absorbing like these conversations that I have, other podcasts that I listen to. Obviously I've leveled up and I've gotten the coaches and I go to events and I, now have my own event. So it's become like this crazy thing where I just realize that every single action I take is to level up. It's to learn the next thing. It's to improve myself. It's to become a better human being. And I'm not just talking business. I mean, it's everything. Like you said, you listen to and read spiritual books. And so it's really about the holistic side of things. Like, how important is balance to you in your life?
I think their balance is a fallacy. I think a lot of people use, time, work, balance, things like that. I think they use these kind of phrases to self-justify maybe why they're being procrastinating or lazy. They go, oh, well, and when I go home, my time's with my family, that's my balance. I'm not going to do extra work. It's like, well, you know what? You're not really doing the duty as a provider of your home if you're just sitting on the couch hanging out with kids and you're not giving them the lifestyle that they deserve or that you could provide for them. So here's the thing is, like, a lot of times we do have hard work when we're starting our business, like we're busting ass. Like you said, 1-2 years in, it's like you may not be paying yourself from that. And you're growing your brand. You're doing some incredible things. But it's building significance. And that's what most people fail to understand. It's like the hard work done today will get you way more free time in a few years, way more, where you may not even have to work again. So when you're coming home and you're just having dinner and sitting around, surfing Facebook, doing things, playing video games, entertaining the small kids and thinking, well, I have work-life balance. I got a job and I got the salary coming in. And you know what? You're going to be doing that same routine for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
Or you can bust ass 1-2 years in, start to have double that amount of time, and then 10 years in, maybe never have to work again.
Yeah. It's a great mindset. And it's funny too, because like when look, I don't try and sell entrepreneurship to anybody. I believe it's somebody's choice. You can't be convinced. Like, I don't like the idea of like, oh, I see a Gary Vee and go, I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, I don't like that. Like, it has to be for you. But at the same time, when people go, oh, I have the work-life balance, I go to work, I do my job, and I come home and I'm home with my family. And then that's what I'm going to do for the next 40 years. Well, guess what? You get fired tomorrow as well. Like, let's put a little fear into this game too. It can be taken away from you tomorrow. And then the time that you're spending with your kids is nothing but, fraught with stress and sadness. And that's what the kids are more important. Like, that's what they're paying attention to. It's not the, oh, dad played catch with me. It's, oh, dad actually cared for me. He was a happy guy. He was loving. So on and so forth. So it's just a different mindset. So you're spot on with that one, dude. So what's next for you? So here you are, you're now mentoring other, business owners and so on and so forth. But what's next?
I'm really trying to build 365 Driven into an entrepreneur's hub. I think it's counterintuitive to the self-improvement genre that we have to go seeking out all these different people. I want them to be able to go to one location and have a network of people readily available that they can learn from, because I do not think that there is an end all be all like guru of gurus. I think that you bring things to the table, Justin, I bring things to the table. I want to have a network of hundreds, maybe thousands of entrepreneurs and thought leaders like yourself that will serve this community and have some, either a membership, just like a one place where people can build their brand within the brand. And I don't think that you should go having to, buy all these $1,000 packages from individual people. Maybe I'm thinking like, hey, what if we did credits and I can go learn something this week from you. Next week, I can go learn from this person. Next week, I can go learn from this person. So I'm thinking like on that kind of a scale, something of a community where also we have the community aspect, like even with the car community that I built, where if I'm traveling out of town, it's like, hey, is anybody in Portland, Oregon? Like, let's meet up. We're family. We're in the same membership group. And that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about, is big picture, worldwide type empire. And it sounds like a really big dream because that's how I think. I don't think small. I don't think small ever.
Yeah.
So I already kind of see where it's going. I believe it's going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but I can already see where that's going. So I'm becoming the right person to carry that message. I'm doing more public speaking events. I'm getting on more stages. I'm even doing volunteer speaking at local high schools because I want to get the entrepreneur mindset in the younger people, because they've gone through the entire school system to learn how to become employees, basically. I'm trying to unwind some of that before they get into the workforce or go spend the next 4 years getting a degree, spending 6 figures to come out to have some worthless degree that's not going to get them a job when they could have invested that same amount of money in a business with a passion that they really have and made a huge amount more. So I got a lot of different things, a lot of irons in the fire. I still got 3 companies I'm building. I'm building a manufacturing startup right now. But these are things I love, man. And you talked about, having to go to work and getting laid off and stuff like that. I grew up watching my dad go through that. I grew up, avoiding my dad when he came home from work because he was always in a pissy mood from his job. And it's like, work-life balance. Like, I'll be honest, there was times I wish he would just stayed at work.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to see him because that's how bad it was. And
it's miserable.
Yeah. So don't fool yourself that you're doing things like you're not being constructive with the time that you have with your kids or your wife. It's a lie that, most people unfortunately tell themselves. So.
Yeah. No, man, for sure. Like, and my dad, from my younger life, going back to that, like my younger life, my dad had a job that made him miserable. And I remember how angry he was all the time. And then he left and had his own company. Yeah. He was busier, right? He had to get home and do paperwork and do all that stuff, but he was way happier. It was a much easier kind of environment to be around and less time, but the time spent was more valuable. And that's what's important. We think it's time, but it's really about what you put into that time, even if it's short. And like you talk about building this network of people, I think that's an amazing goal. I love where you're going. So like when I think about my podcast and what it's done for me, like I obviously there's a community there and so on and so forth, but even the people that I've interviewed, every time I travel somewhere, I meet with people now. Like I was just in LA for 5 days and I had meetings every single day, whether it was just a lunch meeting with somebody I've become friends with or, a connection to go to the next level. I'm going to Orlando on Wednesday. My buddy Aaron Phillips, who was on my show a while back he was on the show Naked and Afraid. He's picking me up at the airport because I just put that on Facebook. So he shot me a text. Mm-hmm. He's like, dude, I didn't know you were coming to Orlando. So you create this incredible world of people that, Aaron and I are going to have fun. But we're also going to talk business. We're going to talk life. We're going to level up. And that's really the power in the internet. That's the power in this world becoming so small. Now, with that being said, man, obviously you've done so many things in your life that are successful. And now you have this amazing podcast and, you're growing this community. My question for you is, what's your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success?
My definition of success is having the ultimate freedom. And the way I would describe that is not having to check in or clock in at any hours. I never want to work at some place that has hours posted on the front ever again. And I don't want to have any limitations on my location. So if I'm always going to be creating money, I'm never going to retire, so to speak, but I'm never going to be the one that just shows up to work like that. Eventually I will be just the investment type person. And to be able to be anywhere in the world and work whenever you want, any part of the day, and to be able to have that income, that to me is the financial success, because then you can be getting paid to do the things that you actually enjoy, whether that's spending time with your family. My wife and I, we love to travel the world and do all these different amazing things. That's the ultimate success to me, to be able to do that. The things I do every day is really, I show up every day. Consistency is my word. So everything that you're always looking for, these buzzwords, there's always people out there thinking about what the latest, greatest thing, the magic bullet, we've got squirrel syndrome, things like that. Like I always come back to consistency. Consistency is a fundamental word that most people overlook because we've heard it our entire lives. And they don't take it serious anymore. They just go, oh, yeah, be consistent. And then they're looking for the next cool word, Yeah. And it's like, no, it's a fundamental, because uniqueness is just showing up every damn day. And it's kind of like what you mentioned earlier, like all these influencers and the fakes that are coming and go. And people are skeptics, especially nowadays on social media. And I can't even tell you how many people that I've seen like hit the ground running really hard for that first 3 months, and they're producing all this content and they're, creating a podcast and they're doing all this but then they're gone in like 3 months because they're not getting the traction that they think they're entitled to. They haven't earned it, but they think like, hey, Justin's doing this, it looks pretty easy. Hey, Tony's doing this, it looks pretty easy. And you know what? I knew that going into it, that I would not have the traction, that I would not have that audience, and that I would find times that I would be like, why am I doing this? And you know what? My purpose was strong enough that I knew that if I just see this through about 6 months, year maybe, I'll start to build this audience. And that's exactly what happened, because I've done that in my entire life. Anything I get into, I go full board, and I realize I do not have an audience because I have not earned one. I have not deserved one yet until I've proven my consistency and show that I keep showing up and creating value. And it's not about me, it's about helping other people. Then people start to pay attention, because you'll find that most people observe in silence on those early phases, because we are such huge skeptics. We see people, who's this guy with his, standing in front of a Lambo? Is that a rented Lambo? Is that house his? Why is he always wearing a suit? You're throwing up all these red flags, and you're like, how come he only has like 10 followers?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with that? So you have all these doubters, and they watch in silence, and they're kind of amused, but they're not going to support you or criticize you until they see how long you can see that through. And what that is Justin, it makes the fakes weed themselves out.
Yeah.
The people who are not fully committed, the people who do not have the passion or the purpose that you and I are speaking right now, they will fade themselves out. It's a great weed out effect. And I love that, actually.
Yeah. And you talk about the people who kind of fade out on their own. The next thing you need to look out for are the people who change how they're making money every 3 weeks. All of a sudden I'm selling this course, or now all of a sudden I'm doing this. And what happened to the last thing? It's because they think they're going to put something out and it's just going to blow up. Like I talk about all the time that my podcast did nothing for a year and a half, nothing, but I showed up consistently every single week. Right. And consistency is just absolutely so key. So I wrap up all these interviews with 5 rapid fire questions. But before we get there, how do people find you? Where do they find your podcast? How do they become part of the 365 driven community?
Well, I keep it real simple because I learned from some experts like you. Just one location I'm going to send you to. So 365driven.com. So the number is 365driven.com. You'll find links to my best-selling book, my podcast, blog, social medias. I'm very active on Instagram and Facebook, but all from that website.
I love it. And guys, just so you know, we talked about all the fakes during this interview. Tony is not a fake. And that's so weird that we got into that because that's how I opened to this interview. But it's one of those things that you weed through the people who are fake. And then all of a sudden here we are having this conversation. And, dude, thank you so much, by the way. But I want to get into these 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun. Some are serious. I just ask you this, answer within one word or at the most one sentence. Are you ready?
Sure.
You sound so ready. The first one
I'm kind of like, I'm like intrigued. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's do this.
First one is, what is your favorite smell?
Wow. Honestly, race gas, racing fuel.
I love it. So if you were on death row, hopefully you never are. If you ever end up on death row, what would be your last meal?
I would say my favorite meal is chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes and green beans. And that's just like a comfort food that my mom used to make when I was a kid.
Nice. If you could have dinner with anybody, living or dead, who would it be?
I think I would like to see or meet Marcus Aurelius. He was the Roman emperor for about 20 years back in the 100 AD time frame. And for anyone who can run and rule the Roman Empire, which was colossal back then, and be as philosophical as he was in the books that he shared. Great books, by the way. Meditations, one of my top favorites, just reading that humans have not changed in thousands of years. They had the same problems back then that we have today.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure if you're going to say Marcus Aurelius Anderson, who he's been on both of our podcasts.
Great dude.
Great dude.
I will see him in April. So
nice. Yeah, he's a great dude. At the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for one sentence, what would that be?
He added more value to this world than he took. He was always willing to help other people when he had needed help himself. And he just created his legacy for everybody else to enjoy.
I love it. And obviously this podcast is called The Growth Now Movement. So I wrap up every single episode with this one question. And that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
For me, I would say that it was coming out of the shadows and stepping away from the herd. I think I had bullies as a young kid. And I learned to just hide in the pack, and safeties in numbers, and not try to stand out. And as I became more confident and more physically fit and gaining confidence by trusting myself and believing in myself, I started to gravitate towards from being an introvert to more of an operational extrovert. And I understand now that it is my duty to shine my brightest light and not try to dim my light to make other people appear brighter than they deserve. And I think that until you're willing to bet on yourself and grow that self-confidence, you're always going to be holding yourself back. And for me, it was just being willing to put myself out there to be able to share my story and not worry about what other people say or think about me.
Awesome. Tony, I just want to thank you so much for doing what you do, and not only taking your knowledge and sharing it with the world, but doing it in a purposeful manner, because not enough people do that. So many people are driven by the dollar. So many people are driven by whatever, but you're doing it with a purpose because you want to help others live a better life. And just thank you so much for being you and sharing your knowledge with my audience, man.
Hey, great being on your show, and it was an incredible interview, and looking forward to doing more things with you, Justin.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.